Well, I'm ready to go. I'm just waiting on Miss Christine.
Yeah, I'm strategically trying to put myself in a more visually pleasant. I'm in my friend's place. I mean, I'm basically always in everybody else's place except mine.
We can all hear each other, right? We're coming in clear?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
You guys are coming in loud and clear too. So
Great.
I'm just waiting on Christine. Christine, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Then without further ado, let's begin, you guys. We're here. This is the Get Realisms podcast. Episode 44, ladies and gentlemen. I am Adam Chase Rennie.
And I'm Christine Chen.
Yeah!
Yeah, we have a big announcement first, right?
We do have a big announcement. Christine, take it away.
So instead of whining and complaining about how I don't have funding.
That wasn't, God, Christine, please. I'm begging you now. Stop.
I have it.
We're not complaining.
I'm greenlit. I'm greenlit. That's all that matters. Is I'm greenlit. I raised $100,000 in one day.
Hey, if anyone works hard and it's noticed, it's you.
It's Miss Christine Chen. That's right. The boss. You know what I'm saying?
We did it.
Boss.
Just so excited that we're making it. Now I'm
Yeah,
having
I
a
am
whole
too.
other set of problems, which is like, this is not enough money.
Oh, well.
Okay, I'm just excited that I have a budget. I remember when I've never had a budget. It's the first time I've ever had a budget.
Yeah.
So,
This is your first feature that
I
actually has a financed budget. Yeah.
Yes. I have an actual.
Not first feature ever though.
No, not first feature ever. It was funny to sign. I emailed the group and was like, hey, and I almost wanted to write first AD, and I was like, not your first AD. I'm actually your director this time. Like finally.
Oh shit.
So cool.
DMX plays in the background.
Right. I wish I had like sparklers or streamers or something.
Well, we got the next best thing, which is our guest, Christine. Can you introduce them?
Wait, let me close the door real quick so I can make.
Oh my God, this is every week with Christine. This is always, she's like, yeah, but hold on, I got to do something else first. I got to send an email before we start the pod.
Wait, I'm trying to share the podcast right now, but I am technologically challenged.
I mean, yeah, I was waiting for you.
I've only done this 44 times.
Yeah. And then a few more before that too.
And a few more before that, I know.
You'll get the hang of it eventually.
Yeah, we're gonna figure this out, ladies and gentlemen.
Christine, you're also doing like a million things at once.
That is also what's happening.
Time.
That's the reality is more that I'm doing other things.
Every time I ask Christine about the podcast every single week, she's like, yeah, that's fine. We could do it Sunday, Saturday, whenever. And I'm just like, okay, cool. And then we get there and I hear Christine typing through the entire podcast. And I come back listening to the podcast and I'm like, Christine, the whole entire audio is you typing. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're working the entire time. People are like, who is this person? She's working.
I had to.
No, you have to. And yeah, that's the other part of it too, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't noticed by now, Christine has to be doing more than one thing because her time literally invests in like there's only so much time in a day, and she has so much shit she has to deal with in a span of a few days.
As she does it right now.
As she does it right now, because she only listens to me like about 30% of the time anyway. So it's just me vamping through the entire podcast anyway.
Listening to 100% of the time, 30% of the time.
Exactly. So for the last time, Christine, can you introduce our wonderful guest who's been waiting patiently for hours?
Okay, so first is Elizabeth True. She's been my actress in 2 of my short films, The Earth Below and 6 Words, and now she's one of the leads in my film, Ursley, that we're actually going to shoot. It's going to be awesome. I'm really, really excited. So she plays Violet in Ursley. And then we've got Eric Kwan. So Eric is one of my oldest friends. I knew him when I was taller than him. Like when I was 7, basically. I actually did not like him when I first met him.
Not many people do. So.
Oh no, come on.
But Eric is an incredible
First impressions.
Filmmaker, and he actually wrote The Earth Below with me. So that's that. And today we are doing our Stop Asian Hate podcast version. So is that what we call episode topic?
Yeah, podcast.
Hate is virus,
Yes.
y'all.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm not an extremely vocal person when it comes to politics. I like to leave it more into the work that I create. Little subtle commentaries and stuff like that. Yalby, all the other jazz. But there are times for sure that we need to speak up as a community and as representatives of our community. So, yeah, as I don't know if, we have experienced just behind and in front of the lens how difficult it is for us to get opportunities in our industry. And luckily, we've been lucky to create those opportunities for ourselves. But more so beyond just filmmaking and the industry itself, it's how we're treated now in society that really sucks. Hearing grandmas being punched in the face, like just for being Asian, and like that's somebody's mom. Like we're better than that. So this is a lot of people have been asking, what are certain things they can do to help? And the first thing is if you see that happening, shit should be like, you should be standing up for that person, not closing your doors, this not saying anything and not standing up for somebody else is just as bad as, not vocalizing, not doing something about it, not, is just as bad as doing it, I guess is what I'm trying to say,
Right.
So you're perpetrating the problem, which is that Asians are not being treated with respect and equally like everybody else right now. So I'm gonna stop talking. Let somebody else chime in.
Please, yeah, anybody.
I think we've just learned that silence is like complacency, and that's not a space that we live in or want to live in. And, even so, I got to work with both Eric and Christine on The Earth Below, and it was such an amazing opportunity because I looking back, it might have been my first real female lead role in a short film, and I was so stoked, and also to be working with other Asian American artists, because I grew up in Dallas in a very, well-to-do, predominantly Caucasian community. And so, it was my first real experience kind of like stepping into the shoes of my own body, but as a character, and trying to understand that even though like the project was a sci-fi-ish piece, but still there was so much to identify with being an Asian American woman, or just being a female, but especially as an Asian American woman. And then leading up to this podcast, I'd called Eric the day after the Atlanta attacks, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel, and I feel like you're a writer and you've got a really good voice, and can you tell me how I feel? You're not a woman, but like I don't know. I feel uncomfortable in my own body and my own skin. Like I feel invisible. I feel angry. I feel all of these things. And Eric and I started talking about it. And then I called Christine because we're trying to figure out Ursula's stuff, but then also I'm like, Christine, like, how are you feeling? Like, it's weird to have these side conversations, knowing that like there's something like deep set within us where we're like, I don't know how I'm supposed to behave, but I would like to figure out how to take action and not be silent and acknowledge what's going on in the community, but also within myself.
Yeah. And how about you, Eric?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've been talking about this and thinking about it every day for like the last several months, and it's been really difficult. I mean, it's a time when, like Elizabeth said, it's hard for a lot of people in the API community to really absorb and process everything that's happening. Because I think, and I told her this, is like, we're experiencing trauma right now. And I think what's unique about our trauma is really that as the Asian community, we've been erased a lot from society. And I think that, especially American and Western society, that we've been marginalized to the point where we're not really thought about. And I think when that happens, we in turn specifically racialized pain. I think pain in general, it's, whatever, but I think racialized pain, especially even in the aftermath of the Atlanta shootings, there's a whole debate about, is this a hate crime? Are these even hate crimes? Should we consider all these hate crimes? And it's sort of that when the knee-jerk reaction to any sort of trauma that's being inflicted upon your community is it even real? It's really messed up, and it's like it really affects us in a way where we're just numbing. I think that's racial dissociation, and I think that's what I am hoping for out of all of this, is for us as a community to kind of look inwards, because I think there's so much. I think the idea of Stop Asian Hate is a very it is an important thing, but at the same time, it's so easy. It's an easy hashtag to get behind, because I think the majority of people will look at it and just, like most things that are related to and affect the Asian community specifically, gloss over it, because it's like, the reaction. In the past, I'd like to see us really internalize, utilize our voices, be proud to be Asian. I think that's a really big thing. I've been having these conversations where people, and even myself, and I think it's just something I've been dealing with personally, is just that, when you are part of such a marginalized community, you've internalized so much of the racism and hatred towards yourself, so much to the point that you don't even know what is and what isn't affecting you personally anymore. And I think that for us, it's about, yes, let's all kind of process this trauma together, but let's come out of it feeling a sense of unity and community, and a pride, I think, that comes with being Asian. I mean, and I think that I see too often, especially as somebody who works in Hollywood, that there is a tendency for creatives to want to avoid being labeled as like an Asian creative. It's like, I don't want to make Asian stuff. I don't want to be seen as the Asian person. And it's sort of like funny to me, because I feel like when I see other POCs, they are things that are necessarily part of that, but it's like, it's understanding and being, you know, attuned to the fact that what you say, what you do, what you create is important and should be reflective of who you are as a person. And part of who you are is Asian. That's something that's, you know, never going to go away. And I don't know. And I'm thinking beyond stop Asian hate, I think it's more of like, you know, it's about Asian love. And I think that's really like what I think we need to kind of bring out of this. So.
Well, and for me personally, it's like with work, with auditions, with whatever. And I mean, my whole life, like I come from a unique home life where I had two legal guardians that were essentially my parents my entire life, but I was very much in touch with my biological father's side of the family. So I had an, you know, a window into seeing like what my immigrant family, like what they experienced, what their lifestyles were like, you know, home life. And yet I grew up again in a very like affluent, like predominantly Caucasian privileged environment. And so for me, it's like I've always kind of tried to blend in and whitewashed myself. And that was something that was really scary to me, because now that I'm experiencing these very traumatic emotional responses to what's going on, I mean, there have been questions of like, and especially with, you know, auditioning as an actor, it's like, am I not Asian enough? Am I too Asian? Like, what does that even look like? Because there are all the different diasporas. And then like, at the end of the day, I just end up feeling lost and not enough and kind of invisible, you know, and then trying to open up the conversation with friends or family. It's like, unfortunately, like, I'm mad and I'm upset and I don't know how to relate, because a lot of my friends, they just look at me and they're like, well, we love you because we love Elizabeth, but, you know, the Asian part isn't, you know, a factor. And I'm like, but it is, because it's part of my identity. And I need you to see that because it's part of the struggle. And Eric, will you share your metaphor about the body part? I love that. I can't do it justice.
I totally forget what the metaphor was, but
Oh, never mind.
Well,
I come up with metaphors on the spot, but
yeah, it has to
sorry.
be in the moment. It plays in the
Body
moment.
parts.
But you said something. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just
I'm good.
saying that to piggyback on the point that you just made about trying to fit in and being someone else rather than just accepting for who you are, you know, instead of just, I wanted to ask, like, have there ever been, and you can please chime in, Eric or Christine, have there been times where you guys felt pressured to like not necessarily like push away the fact that you embrace the Asian culture, you know, however, but was there any time where you had to like suppress it down for the sake of like, you know, your friends or people who you worked with or anything like that because you were worried about X, Y, or Z, you know?
Yeah, I think I did that admittedly all the time. I mean, I'm not proud of it, but I know growing up, like, and I'm not alone in this, by the way.
No, I'm
is that there is no, but I mean, like, I think that there is this percent, and I think we just grow up, like, we're meant to feel an intense amount of shame and like, you know, just shame around like who we are and who our parents are. I mean, there's so much of like being in society. My parents are a certain way, they're immigrants and they have a certain set of values and they don't always align with Western values. And, you know, when it was like, I was like, don't bring my friends over to the house because then they'll meet my parents and they'll think I'm weird. You know, apologize for my parents if they're saying certain things or acting a certain way. It became this thing where it's like, yeah, it's like definitely a subconscious thing where it's like you almost need to apologize for your, you know, your family's existence. Like, we are the way we are because, and I'm sorry about that. And that's such a fucked up way to think, by the way. But I know growing up that was it, because that is sort of the thing, because like I think that is part of I mean, that is the summarization of what being an Asian American diaspora is, right? It is this: you are between two different worlds and you don't belong in either of them. And I think that is the thing, is that I know growing up, there was an immense amount of pressure because I just wanted to fit in. I went to a school that was 96% white, you know, and nobody understood anything or any nuance about my culture, nor cared to really understand. But I wanted girls to like me. I wanted friends to like me. I wanted to have acceptance. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to fit in. And I think that in a way I've suppressed that, a lot. And I think even in my adult life, wanting to, suppress that for the sake of, or downplaying it. But I think that's my whole thing, is I'm so sick of that. My parents are who they are, and everybody's parents are fucked up in their own way. So it's but it's
Fair.
and it's but my parents worked so fucking hard to make it to where they are and give me the opportunities I have. And I really the thing that breaks my heart is that I spent so much of my life hating my parents because I believed that they were wrong about life and about the way they approach things. And I realized that it was just different. They always wanted what was best for me, right? And they always wanted me to be successful, to be happy. And they just expressed it in a different way. But because I was a part of this kind of very Western Eurocentric kind of society, very entrenched in this idea of individualism, I wanted to break away from that so badly. And I think there is such a racialized component to it that I'm just starting to now come around to. But I don't know, Christine, you can speak on that too and how you feel about it.
I mean, I totally grew up feeling not able to fit in either, for sure. Mine, I feel like it was less so about, I don't know, whether it was wanting to belong, or it was that it felt like it goes both ways. It also felt like my parents didn't care to understand why I wanted certain things from the Western culture either, and it was this both not wanting to include or mix the cultures that made us kind of just stuck in this middle. So what I grew up with was longing to go to prom without having to get in a fight about it, longing to go to a sleepover without having to get in a fight about it, longing to do extracurricular activities that any other parent would have loved their kid to do, but somehow it's like I was doing drugs or something. So that was my problem. My problem was, luckily I grew up where, yes, it was 96-7% white too where I went, but I was always around people that were very understanding for the most part, and just saw me as me and didn't really see beyond anything of that, And I definitely, when I went to college, was more open to being hey, bringing my friends to go eat at certain places that we grew up and wanted to go eat at, dumpling houses and stuff. So introducing the culture to my friends, I was definitely more like that when I valued it more as I grew older. But as a kid, my issue was always fighting this want to have my parents accept the fact that we live in the US and there are other values besides just traditional Asian values, So that was more my fight. I really was drawn to you saying that this is not just a white people against, or non-Asian people against Asian people. This is a community thing as well as a need for community support, So one of the big things that I had I know it's a generalization, but the problem of, why aren't there more Asian filmmakers out there? you know? And I was like, because Asian families don't support that. So, but a lot of Asian families don't support that. So that's, and, or like, it's weird if I don't share much of my film career or success or any of that with my family. I'm trying very hard to, but I feel like I'm speaking in a different language when I do. And I don't think it's taken seriously because it's not a traditionally serious job, you know, but I feel like that's, I don't know, maybe that's not just an Asian thing, but just, there's gotta be support within our community.
Well, I think, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think what's also happening is like we're learning how to communicate about deep-rooted trauma like that our parents and our family has experienced, like even trying to live out this American dream or, you know, trying to assimilate because, you know, for my parents, my biological father and my uncle came over as refugees when they were 16 and 18. And my dad wasn't old enough to live alone with my uncle, like in a, you know, being resettled in a home through international rescue committees. So the director of IRC in Dallas took in my dad, and he was essentially like a sponsored like foster kid for a couple of years, and then got thrown into school and like didn't know the language at 16 and you know, just tried to get a quick education and it didn't work out for him. And so like, just in terms of like being thrown into America, like now it's time for you to figure it out and do it. There wasn't much direction. And I think like the struggle to get here and then try and like, again, like live the American dream, start a family, like keep your head down and like try and provide for your kids. Like there was so much that wasn't talked about. And I like think about like both my dad and my uncle, like were on a boat, like they escaped from Vietnam to Thailand and pirates jumped their boat, you know, and my uncle like hid his prized possessions like under the motor of the boat and like convinced them that like, you know, we don't have anything, but like it happened twice trying to escape. And just situations like that like as kids are like, you know, trying to leave their native land and then come to America and just blend in, I think was really difficult. At the same time, like they don't want to talk about some of the trauma that they experienced. And so as kids, we didn't know what to do and how to like understand our parents, because they'd be like, no, like with my cousins, they went to Chinese school every weekend. Here I am, to your point of like, you know, extracurricular activities. Like I got to live kind of like the white kid life where I'm like, I'm going to soccer games, drinking Capri Sun or whatever, and, you know, going to sleepovers. And then I would go to my uncle and aunt's house and my cousins would be sitting there with their Chinese homework. And I'd be like, what's up? You know, and in a way I was like, what, I want to be doing what they're doing because I want to mimic them. But at the same time, like I'm living a really cush life, you know, hanging out with my friends, not knowing who I am or what I am. So it's like, I think we've all in a way like lived these like dual personalities or lives because we have to turn it on for our friends. And then we also have to turn it on for our parents and try and figure out like how to make both parties happy.
Mm-hmm. Dual personalities is how I feel like.
Yeah, it's very code switching. I mean, and I think that happens in all communities, really.
Absolutely.
I mean, truthfully, I do think it is. I think it is very, you know, yeah. I totally resonate with what you guys are sharing because I think so much of that was my struggle too. Was sort of like, how do you individualize yourself, but pay credence to like where you come from, because so much of Asian culture is rooted in community, right? It's rooted in family. It's filial by nature, and that's just something that is diametrically opposite of what is here. And here in America, it's like this. It is individualism. It is self. It is so much. Um and I think that sort of like, I think that for me, like, I think where the story is kind of turned is that, you know, how I've sort of shifted in a direction is sort of that, like, I think that individualization at the sake of abandoning a lot of the values that I actually think are important, you know, to me and what I believe, we're also being kind of left behind for the sake of just wanting to break away from it, you know. And I think that's the damage, right? That's sort of the scary thing, is that, and the power of like erasure in Western society, is that when you don't see yourself, when you don't see anyone else like you, in a way, like you begin to abandon all those other parts of you, because you just don't think that those have any social value, you know.
What I find empowering right now, though, is knowing that, especially people our age, like first generation Asian American, right? Like that's what I am. Knowing that the conversation is not only being had with our friends and people that don't understand our, you know, our upbringings and whatever, but also with our families, and saying like, I think it's time for everyone to speak up and talk about it. You know, it's like, I think for so long, I didn't understand the struggle of my parents and family and extended family. And then within the past 5 years, I'm so curious. I got to visit Vietnam, like I met more family, but just like hearing how they came to be, why they ended up in a certain place, like what refugee camps, what countries they ended up before making it to America, how they ended up, because I'm, you know, from Texas, like how they ended up in Dallas or the surrounding, whatever. And not only hearing about how they got there, but like really investigating what their experiences were, because I think for so many of us, like as much as we understand our parents, we don't, because they're just like, we're just trying to do what's best for you and send you on your way and to be successful, right? And so I think it's so important now, and I think it's amazing to see, like I went to a vigil in Alhambra and right after the attack, and just like hearing people of all different ages finally start to share their experiences, because for so long, like I didn't know anything about what my relatives had been through in a very like,
yeah, I think
way.
Asians in general have felt the need to just keep it like inside, and whether it's for their kids' sake or for I think as a culture too, I don't think they're just not very vocal about sharing things. It's
Again,
there's this concept of like, you don't want to burden somebody, right?
Totally.
Right.
I make myself a victim of that now. And when I identify, I'm like, no, I've got to deal with it. And I want to talk about it. And instead of being ashamed or push it down, I think it's really important that we acknowledge what it is. But, you know, I think there's something about the API community where it's like, there's just so much respect. And I think everyone is, for the most part, like, we're a very gentle community. And so in a way, you wonder why we haven't been able to openly talk about it. But I don't know if it's like permission or what, but I've never felt like the permission to openly talk like we are now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Christine.
I
Sorry.
was gonna say, I guess it's like, I'm gonna, because my life is films and I like to use films as metaphors. When you're on set, there are crew people who just complain and they get what they want, and there's the people who don't at all.
It's true.
They get overlooked completely because they're not complaining, they're not saying anything, so they're fine. They must be fine. So I guess if we think of it as, we're not complaining, we're just expressing what we need and what we want to feel respected and seen, and in our society, then if we see it from that perspective, then maybe that will help the community and us as individuals be better about being vocal of what we're experiencing. So like Adam always tells me, stop saying we're complaining, stop saying we're whining and stuff like that. It's not. It's being vocal about what we want and need to make us feel like we're part of the community as a whole.
Adam, I've never met you until now, so nice to meet you. But I'm curious, just listening to us, like, what does it make you feel?
I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, when the thing happened in Atlanta, I called my old high school friend who is Korean, and he literally echoed the same exact thing you guys said, beat for beat. Like, he felt so out of step in the community that he was just like, I didn't know this shit was going on, dude. He was just like, I was just too busy listening to Metallica, eating pizza with you. Like, I didn't know, this amount of hatred was going on. And I would visit his house too, and his parents were eccentric, and my parents are too, and we shared that thing because we both like kind of, we didn't grow up rich. We just kind of grew up playing Xbox together, sharing comic books and stuff, he showed me most of the superheroes I love today, like Iron Man, and we're just a couple of nerds. And he didn't really like talk about the Asian community. He has siblings who are for sure like part of that and stuff, but like he hung out with us like skateboard nerd kids, and he was just kind of fitting in with all of us. But we were all like a mixed bag of like, we were Latin American, there was Asian American, there was me, and then there's other, even white people too, of course. But all in all, like we sort of just didn't see that. And that was no exception to my friend, and I sort of felt bad, but he kind of told me, he was like, I mean, it's not about like me trying to put guilt on you. It's just about of all of us coming together. And it's not really the fact of like, well, this is another Tuesday, no, this is a problem. And now we're seeing that this is a problem. And he said, this is the first step, I think,
I appreciate you being so aware, because I feel like I had to reach out to some of my friends to be like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm a little upset. I'm actually a lot upset. And I'm there's a lot of fire and heat in me right now. And you haven't thought to reach out to me or like, just say, how are you doing? And in a way, and all of a sudden I start to feel really selfish and like as if I'm being dramatic.
Yeah.
But my whole life I've like tried to be chill, and like everyone is like, you're a survivor, you're fine. And it gets to me where I'm like, wait, that doesn't make me fine. Like I just have like a toolbox of survival skills, to blend in with any crowd.
It doesn't make you less valid. Yeah.
No, and again, like, the response was like, well, we've just learned we love you for who you are, and the Asian thing isn't really something we think about. And that's where it's like, I think it's our responsibility to acknowledge that is so much of our being. It doesn't define us, like our essence, and we are who we are. But again, I think the challenge and the calling is like, how do we facilitate a voice to kind of our experiences and what we want people to understand. I was leaving a store on Friday, like after the attacks, and it was like on a two-story building, and this guy followed me down to the parking lot. And I was like, oh, great. Is this happening? And I live in a really pretty woke, safe neighborhood, but yeah, like I've outwardly was on social media saying like, I actually am living in fear right now. And maybe you guys aren't seeing it, or I don't know if you care, but it's the truth. And I want people to understand that, like, this is a thing that's very present at the moment.
And you shouldn't go about
and I don't-
walking the world looking behind your back at all times too. You know, that's not a way to
know.
live.
But thanks, Trump, for
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it's been here, and
Right.
You're right.
it's embedded so much in American culture. And I think that obviously, having someone like Trump in office exacerbates a lot of things. But that's the thing. It's something that's always beneath the surface of things. And I just think it's like, I think my reaction to the whole Atlanta shooting was like my white friend suddenly coming out going like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, dude, 2020 to 2021, there have been innumerous amount of Asian attacks, and people being hate crimed on a repeated basis that the media does not talk about, does not cover, men, women, old, young, everybody. And it's like, I'm glad, and I'm so grateful that you reached out at this time to like listen to me, or to check in on me. But it's like, holy shit, dude, like this has been happening for so long,
I know, but don't you feel like it fits? Sorry, it feeds. Please continue, but feeds into the whole model minority thing.
Well, I think, yeah, it does, because I mean, to be fair, the model minority in America is the one that doesn't make any trouble, right? It's the people who have no political power. It's people who aren't politically activated, don't say anything, and ostensibly buy into what America has to sell, which is white supremacy and and Western values. And it's like, and Asian people, we're the best at so many things. We are definitely the best at that, like in a way. Like I think our community has been very good at that, and I think that's why when actual things happen, they're like, "You're fine, this isn't real. Is it real? Like, really?" And it's like, and you have to be like, "No, it is. You just don't read about it and you don't think about it all the time." But I think about it, I know a lot of other people think about it, and it's just it sucks. It sucks to like have to be in a position where you're like, and I don't know, I think that's a hard thing for me, is like feeling so grateful that finally I can have an open discussion about this, but also just so like enraged that it's only now like I'm feeling any ounce of validation. And I think at the same time, more enraged that it's just like people are just now, oh, like this was a thing, like you go on any forum or any Facebook post, and it's like in the sub, in the comments, they're like, "I didn't even know Asian hate crimes were a thing. Like, I didn't even know this was happening, like, how is this? Why are we creating hashtags? Why are we doing this?" And it's like, and I'm like, it's because we've always prioritized other groups of people ahead of ourselves, and I think it now is the time. Like it's been the time for a long time, but now is like we need to stand up, because all it takes is another random thing to happen for it to, for us to not for this to kind of go away. If something happens, like, that's else happens, like this kind of escapes the public consciousness. That's what scares me the most, honestly, is just that people will forget about this in a few weeks.
I think as artists, now this is our duty. It's our job. It's our calling to make sure that they don't. Right?
I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah, it's to continue to be vocal and to instead of what Eric was saying, instead of saying, "I don't want to make Asian things," sure, maybe we're not required to have to what defines Asian things, like
right.
Our thought of Asian things was we are not okay. It's okay if we don't make Asian historical remakes, but there's more to Asian things than that. There's putting the modern context into everyday stories is important, in my film, Elizabeth already suggested, hey, how about is there a way we can incorporate, because one of the characters, Violet, obviously Asian, so can we incorporate some of the things that are happening in a subtle way? And like, yes, I want to, so that's not, I think it's understanding, like, sure, I don't want to be an Asian filmmaker defined with making only certain kinds of Asian-ish content. Doesn't mean I'm straying away from who I am as an Asian creator who is connected to and accepts and loves who I am as an Asian American,
Yeah,
So-
it's broadening our representation, I think, and I think that's real. Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing. And honestly, like, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, we're all millennial Asian American people, and I feel like I wish we had a more Gen Z person on here, but I feel like I'm heartened because I feel like Gen Z now is like much more attuned to this kind of stuff. I feel Gen Z Asians feel much more connected. They live in social media, TikTok, YouTube, those sorts of things. And I feel like being Asian is fucking cool now, man. Like, it really is. It wasn't cool when I was growing up, but it's like,
yeah. Hey,
but it's like,
Minari, sadly, it's been first Asian, it is the first Asian actor, right, to be nominated for
for best actor. Yeah,
best actor. I mean, dang. And then
I know.
Some other Minari.
Bong Joon-ho won Best Director.
Yeah. I mean, it's
changing. These are changing.
Yeah, and I think that's heartening, because I think that is a step. I mean, I think that is the thing, and we just have to remember that at the end of the day, it's like, I feel like humanizing people is like, that's what's going to, quote, stop Asian hate or whatever, is like, and that's what stops hate in general, is like, we need to humanize everyone and humanize all of our experiences. And I think that's the art that we need to create, is something that's honest, something that is reverent of our community and who we are as people, so.
And to go back and answer the question for some of my non-Asian friends, how can we help?
Oh yeah.
Is you help support people who are trying to vocalize these and humanize and make content that wants to celebrate being Asian American, or people who want to hire and make sure that there are people behind and in front of the camera that are Asian American, and making sure that content actually accurately represents Asian Americans. It's like people saying, hey, we're more than just, obviously I just use Vietnam War because it's what I can think of right now. We're more than just these, or like African Blacks saying, hey, we're more than just the slave trade, there's lots of content out there that we need to broaden and show that we are more than just what people put us in terms of buckets.
Don't put me in a box.
Yeah, we're more than just that. Asians are more than just, I don't know. I just feel like when people think, hey, Asian films, they just think like a kung fu film, and right now, great, we have Crazy Rich Asians now, but there's more than that. I want to see us everywhere, because that's a better representation, of the community, is seeing us humanize in lead roles and in stories that represent us properly. But the thing is, it starts from the top too. Like, people need to give funding to artists that tell those stories. That's a great way to help. People need to support our community. That's the part that I always constantly, don't know how to ask. We're not a culture that likes to ask for help anyway. It's a pride thing, right? We're not supposed to ask for money. We're not supposed to ask for help. And so
It's so scary to ask.
yeah,
I called Christine and I'm like, well, and Eric both. I'm like, okay, guys, can we do this together? Because I don't know how to do it alone. Honestly, I was like, Christine, how do we get the money for the film? How do we do it? Let's do it together. Like, let's, you know, hit all these different groups to say like, we are making this and we think that we have something of value and of beauty to share, but like, it's also from this Asian perspective. And I want, you know, see us. But Christine was like, I'm not really tapped in. And I'm like, neither am I, but like, I think it's time.
It's just so weird because I think about it, I'm like, I can't even ask my own parents for help. So if I can't feel comfortable to ask my own family for help, how do I ask a bunch of strangers who don't know me? I think that's the problem that I'm running into. I just don't, you know.
Well, I think it's also like, not to turn this into a big therapy session, but it's also like kind of recognizing too, because I think that was my problem too, was like I saw my parents as defining for the entire Asian community.
Okay,
I looked at them and I was like, oh, my mom and dad, they're kind of dicks and they don't see me, and I felt like that was everybody. So I was like, I'm going to completely push this off the table.
Yeah.
And I'm going to embrace this non-Asian side of me because that feels like safe. That feels like I can do something there. But I think it's about sort of, and this is my acclimation, is sort of like reacclimating myself to like, and I think honestly, the biggest thing for me was moving to Los Angeles. Like, you know, not to hype it up, but it's like when I'm around other just Asian people in general who have a lot of my experiences and my thoughts and feelings, it's like you suddenly feel the sense of validation and the sense of like you're not alone, and that's really the first step in resolving any sort of like issue you have. Not to make this all about that, but it's, you know, I think that's the thing, is like we should be able to ask for help, and maybe if we can't ask our parents, we can ask our friends as parents or ask our friends, you know, and like if they know people, because I think that's the thing, is our community is so diverse, and we need to like, you know, we need to like be willing to be vulnerable enough and willing enough, because I feel like in my experience with the people who I've reached out to or who I've been fortunate enough to connect with, is like, dude, Asian people are so fucking cool, and they're so good at we're so good at shit, and we're so smart, and we have so much money too. Like, I mean, that's the thing. It's funny. It's like, I have so many friends, like I'm the poorest of all of my Asian friends, I'm pretty sure. But it's like, you know, it's like,
It's not a competition, but I might be poorer than you.
I don't know, guys.
I mean, you know, but it isn't a competition. But you know, but I'm just saying in a way that like I feel like, you know, it's really, yeah, it's like, it's sort of how do we and it goes back to what I said initially, it's like, how do we ourselves transform how we think about our community? You know, like I think that's crazy. Like it's just sort of, that's what I've been feeling the most of, is like, it's like I can't control what other communities think of us. Like that's a thing. Like and this is controversial, but I really believe holding up a sign that says "Stop Asian Hate" or like "Our Asian elders are people" doesn't actually help anything, because those people have already moved beyond that point, right? Like it's sort of, and to me, what is actually going to fundamentally change things is if we unify ourselves and we sort of empower ourselves to protect ourselves as a community, because right now that's what makes us a target, is we're seen as these very vulnerable, very like, and it's like, fuck that, you know, like we're strong, we're capable, we can be just as, you know, powerful as anybody else, right? Exactly.
Absolutely.
You know, but we got to do it ourselves. Sorry, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Oh my gosh, no, I keep like, I'm sorry. I used to say like, I'm such a good listener, but when I have something to say, I really want to say it. But I do think it's like, it really took me talking to both Eric and Christine for me to be honestly comfortable enough to like let's show up here together. Let's start actually becoming, pillars in the community. Like as much as I know about different groups, the reason why we also know about all these Asian hate crimes is because we started following Asian, social media groups, or like following different accounts. And all of a sudden my entire Instagram feed is hate crimes for months, like since last year. It's been a year full of like, this person got robbed, this person got kicked in the face, and sort of spit in the face. And I'm like, wait, what? And of course, because I'm finally integrating and choosing to like pay attention, am I able to like build confidence and to finally say, like, you know what, I need to be a part of this movement. I need to be a voice. I need to take a stand. So, and I still feel like it's hard to do alone. So I'm grateful that like I get to create, be a part of Ursley with Christine. Eric saw that I went to the vigil and he was like, hey, I'd love to go to the next thing with you. And I'm like, yes, please. Because it's kind of scary. It's like going to a new school and being like, will they like me? Because I don't know how to be a part of this community, but I want so desperately to be.
I'm going to say we have a 5-minute warning, only because we have yet another. We all are stuck on a Farm podcast. We have our welcome meeting for Ursley. So,
that's going to be awesome. All right.
I'm really excited about it.
It's a perfect time to take this bad boy for a landing.
Yes.
I mean, do you guys?
Great. This is I'm really understanding. Like, hey, it's cool to hear that you guys also feel these things, and I think I really connected with what Eric was saying. Like, hey, we make the entire Asian community representative of just our parents, and therefore not being able to connect their parents is causing us to maybe subconsciously or consciously not want to, deal with the entire Asian community. And that's not right either. And so, just simply getting over that and understanding too that being vocal and saying what you want is not complaining, and it's not, it's not, and it's that we are just voicing what we feel that we need to feel loved and respected in the world.
And that we're the shit. I mean, that's essentially what Eric was saying.
We're cool, guys.
Yeah, we're really cool. We're really fucking cool.
I was like, wait, right.
In conclusion, things are cool.
I couldn't agree more. Y'all are dope. And this was a great conversation, you guys. Thank you so much for joining in and going through the dumb technical difficulties. I was about to throw my computer out the window, but I'm so glad I didn't, because I would have missed out on this amazing conversation. And thank you guys so much. I hope you guys can come back again later in our podcast journey that Christine's gonna, and I are doing. We're gonna take this fucker global, guys. Okay.
Hey.
Wait, but I had a self promote.
That's right.
So for those out there wanting to support Asian filmmakers, Asian creators, people behind and in front of the camera, please consider donating to our crowdfunding campaign at ursleyfilm.com. And I'm asking the Asian community for your help and support, and for everybody else. So all my non-Asian friends, this is how you guys can help and support. You support content that helps to humanize and put our voices out into the world. And please reach out to your fellow Asian friends. Just because they don't say anything, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are fine. So,
and you get to see Christine and I work together for the 3rd time, and it's so fun.
Yes.
Very exciting.
It's going to be a super diverse, super dope ass movie, Christine. That's going to be exciting. You guys, Ersley Film. Wait, what was the link again?
Ersley Film, ERZULIFILM.com.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Get in it. Put in that money. Be part of a history, you guys. It's all broken down for you. Come on. Sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was in the street, Ryan, doing it again. I'm like, ooh. I was once told by an elder, no money, no honey.